Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those new here, my name is Nikki, and today we're going to talk just very briefly to share some of my thoughts on using different types of media for language study. Now, I've mentioned or will mention in future episodes things such as vlogs and podcasts. And if you're at a beginner level, these will be ones you find that are aimed at language learners, so they're obviously highly suitable study materials. As you get into more high intermediate and advanced level, then you can be looking for vlogs and podcasts that are aimed at native speakers. However, what about studying with other things such as music, films, and dramas? There are definitely good things about each, but also some pitfalls you need to watch out for. So let's start with music. Music's really easy to study with because it's the kind of thing you can listen to on the bus on the way to work. If you're musically inclined, you might want to have a sing along. And this can certainly be really beneficial. You can learn some vocab, you can get to practice speaking to a certain extent. However, you do need to watch out for a couple of things. One of those is that songs will often use a lot of slang, which isn't the sort of terms you'd want to be pulling out in everyday conversation with strangers necessarily. And the same can be true that they use slightly poetic terms sometimes. So I'm thinking, pop music's going to have a lot of slang. But if I think about musical theatre songs that are translated into foreign languages, I know for a fact that, if we translate Les Mis into Japanese, it becomes incredibly poetic. And even translating English shows into Korean, they use a lot of terms that you'd see perhaps in books, in poems, and in lyrics, but not in everyday speech. So that's definitely something you have to watch out for as well, that you're not learning words that when you speak them in an everyday situation are going to sound strange. And the other thing to watch out for is, excuse me, pronunciation, because sometimes the way words are spoken in songs, they're putting a lot of emphasis, they're really drawing out syllables, and that's not a representation of how it would sound naturally in speech. I can definitely think off the top of my head that Japanese and French, there are songs that I hear in those languages, and the way they pronounce the words or drag out the words in the song are very different from how you would say it naturally, just in everyday conversation. So music can be good. If you love music, it's a great way to get into a language. You can try and translate some of the lyrics, but just be aware of those difficulties that you need to watch out for at the same time. So what if, on the other hand, we think about dramas and films? Again, the issue here is that the way they speak in these highly scripted scenarios is not necessarily a good representation of everyday conversation. It's not going to be quite as different as the song lyrics might be. It's not going to be quite as poetic, perhaps not quite so much slang, but it's also not necessarily completely naturalistic. There's also the difficulty level and the fact that if you're a beginner and you're trying to learn watching films and dramas, you're going to have the subtitles on because you don't know enough of the language to follow without them. And if you're reading the subtitles in your native language, you're not really studying. You're enjoying the film, you're enjoying the drama series, but that's not the same as a really concentrated study. I mean, you could argue that it's still exposure. You're still hearing the language, which is great. And obviously, if you're hearing things that you then go, yeah, I recognize that verb ending or I recognize that word, that's wonderful. But it's a bit different than real concentrated focus study. It's more sort of extensive comprehension, extensive listening, and exposure compared to really intensive study. You can make this more intensive if you use things like Language Reactor or sites like LingoPie, where you can see explanations on the screen, or you can put up both sets of subtitles so you're actively reading in Korean and English, or your native language if that's not English. However, you do need to be aware that if you're doing that, you're not concentrating on the drama itself so much, you're zooming in on the language. So it's two very different approaches. You're either watching the drama or you're studying with it. As you get into intermediate and advanced, it's definitely possible to study with films and dramas. For a beginner, though, I'd say it's a bit more difficult. And if you really wanted to study with some sort of media, I'd actually recommend looking for um, perhaps documentaries, but really I'd start with reality TV because the language they speak in reality TV shows is going to be much closer to native, natural speech than the scripted um, dramas and films. So if you are able to get hold of a script, that would be great. If you can find the script to follow along to, if they don't have subtitles available in the native language for you that you're watching in. Another option, and one thing that actually is really good about reality shows, for those of you who are studying Korean, reality shows can be really great because they naturally put up quite a lot of what's being said on the screen. The text is there of what they're saying anyway, even without turning on subtitles. So that's a really good option if you're studying Korean. So this was just a few very quick and simple thoughts I wanted to share with you. I don't think you should ban anyone from studying languages with media, but you do just need to be aware of the things to look out for if you're going to do it, and the best approach is to get the most out of it. I will end there, but I will see you again in another vlog next month. Bye for now, everyone.